What is up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new video, and today I'm very excited because we're going to be taking a look at Orchestral Tools' newest library called Phoenix Orchestra. So if you're unaware of what this library is, it's essentially a collaboration between Orchestral Tools, Gerald Williams, and Richard Harvey. So Harry was writing the score for Mulan, the film that just came out, and he was looking for some Chinese sounds, right? And knowing the quality of Orchestral Tools, they collaborated together along with Richard Harvey, who was a master of um, what is it, uncommon or unusual instruments, and they formed this library. So based on some of the walkthroughs and some of people's first impressions, I have high hopes for this library. I haven't listened to it yet, so I'm going to do kind of like a first impressions look into this product. And I'm very excited because a couple of months ago, Orchestral Tools approached me and asked if I'd like to, do a review or a walkthrough of the library, or, just a look through of it. And I said, of course, yes, of course, So we're going to get into it now. I've just loaded up all of the different instruments. Let's just take a look at what this comes with. So here is the folder structure. We have the pluck strings, bowed strings, winds, and percussion. These are the four main orchestral sections of the Chinese orchestra. And so each folder has their own respective instruments and articulations within each instrument, as you can see. So I've kind of separated into four different tracks. So for this one, we'll just be taking a look at the pluck strings. So if we just go into the mixer window, you can see I have the different instruments loaded here. And the only one I have on at the moment is the Yangqin. So let's just play some of these and hear what they sound like. Now, I should mention that by default, the spot microphone is loaded up. So let's just hear what that sounds like first, and then we'll add in the tree and see what the tree sounds like by itself. I've only downloaded the spot and the tree mix, by the way. They call that the basic kit, and I agree with that because I think really you only need 2 or 3 microphone positions at the most for most orchestral uses. Other than that, you might have the surround or AB mics for extra depth or stuff like that, but tree and spot mics are really good for definition and a little bit of ambience in the hall. So here's what the Yangqin sounds like. Let's take a look at the performance page over here. So it looks like the register ranges from this G, from, what is it, like, it's like G1 to this high G over here. Yep, nice high G over there. So the recording quality, as you would expect, is very beautiful. Let's keep going. By the way, before we go on, I should mention that a couple months ago, I put together a Chinese instrument guide, actually. I think I called the video A Guide to Traditional Chinese Instruments. It was kind of like a video essay going over the history of Chinese instruments and the most popular ones. And that was inspired by the release of Jade Ethnic Orchestra from Stress of Sampling, but it's equally applicable to this library, of course. So that was a really fun video to put together, and you can feel free to download the slides for that video right in the description box below. It's the first link, absolutely free. If you're curious to learn more about traditional Chinese instruments, I think that resource will really help you. So for me, going through these instruments, it kind of brings back to mind some of these techniques and articulations we've talked about in the video. And I also wrote a piece using Jade Ethnic Orchestra called Internal Resolve. So that is one of the most fun times I've had writing music, actually, using a library like that. It was the first non-Western library I really used. So anyway, going on with it. Doubles. Very cool. I'm not sure if those are actually time stretchable or anything. I don't think so, but anyway, it's a cool texture to have. Tremolo. Yeah, I feel like swells are quite a common articulation or quite a common playing technique for the yangqin because it's basically like hammers going back and forth on the strings. Cool. Let's continue on with the ensemble now. So we have, and let's hear the tree for this ensemble over here. So we're just going to let the load up here. By the way, I really like the sign update, how it shows you a blue bar to show you how much of the samples are actually loaded. It stands out nicely against the black background of sign. So let's have a listen. So I'm just writing the mod wheel there to see how much of a dynamic range we have. Tremolo octave. So I'm only pressing one key here. I'm playing middle C, and it's playing the tremolo an octave above. Very cool. Let's move on to the gujang, one of the most common instruments in Chinese music. Here we go. Now, I've heard some people say that the Gujang actually has no round robins, which is interesting because the Yangqin has, I believe it's 2 or 3 round robins. The Gujang actually was sampled with 0, I think. So that's just an interesting choice on Orchestral Tools' part. Let's keep going here. So the Gujang Ensemble, I'm expecting to sound pretty similar to the single Gujang, but just with a little more depth. Beautiful sound. And the Luan Yin. By the way, a lot of these are Mandarin pronunciations. I'm a Cantonese speaker, so I'm probably mispronouncing it quite a bit, which I apologize for my fellow Mandarin people. Cool, let's move on to the Liu Qin. So here's the spot. Let's load up the tree as well, actually. Let it load in. So yeah, the update for the sign player, I think it's 1.0.5, especially helps Logic people out. For me especially, there were a lot of like hiccups. There was some distortion happening before with the sign player, but now it seems to be sped up a little bit and there aren't very many problems. So that's always a good thing. Okay, this is really interesting actually. So here it sounds like we have 4 note chords. Oh, it's actually open fifths. So it's basically C, G, C, G. And it's going up and then back down. So it alternates basically. It goes up and then back down. And the same with here. We get the root third and the fifth. It's an extended position triad. It goes up and then back down, up, down, depending on how you play it, you know? So I play it once, it goes up. You play it again, it goes down. And finally, it's the same for the minor chords. Very interesting. And then I'm assuming it's the same layout, but just faster here. Yeah, really interesting. Very cool. Cool. Let's move on to the Pipa. Why don't we hear the tree for this one here? Let's see if it loads up. You know what? Let's just go with the spot microphone here. Start with the sustains. So for just so in case you don't know, the pipa looks kind of like a type of mandolin or like a really small guitar, and it has this really beautiful light type of tone to it. So it's interesting. It's going up a whole step, doing a little tremolo, and coming back down to rest on the initial note. So this feels like a whole tone type of bend and then goes back to the original note. Let's see what the difference is with this one. Yeah, so this bends up, but it doesn't go back down to the original note. Minor third bend. Very cool, and we know what to expect from these ones here. Let's move on a little faster. Then we have the Zhongran. Here we go. This one sounds more like just a regular guitar, you know? So that low G there. Highest note is this E right there. Cool. And finally, the ensemble. All right, so drawing some conclusions so far from this library, for the pluck strings at least, recording quality is excellent as usual, very pristine, very, very clear, no artifacts whatsoever. The number of articulations and the, the what should I say? The bends, like the unique things that you can do with these instruments, I feel like those are pretty well recorded as well in terms of like the selection. I feel like for most types of music that will use these instruments, you're pretty well covered with what there is to offer. And yeah, I guess the only issue was that for the Gujang, there were no round robins. But so maybe if you're looking for a dedicated Gujang library, you might look somewhere else. But from my experience with it, I mean, I'm probably not going to write pieces with just the Gujang in it. But the sound itself is wonderful, so nothing really I can complain about. You know? So it's a beautiful library. And those are the harmonics. You know? So yeah, all in all, great job so far. All right, moving on to the bowed strings. Now we're going to take a look at the different selection of bowed strings we have here. And essentially, they kind of mirror the Western orchestra, but the gaohu or the gohu, go in Cantonese means high. So naturally, true to its name. This is the high version of the erhu. Then the erhu is obviously like the traditional Chinese violin. The zhonghu is the low erhu basically, and then or it serves as the alto voice, Then we have the cello ensemble and the double bass filling out the rest of the string section. So the gohu sounds something like this. Let's find out. So what I find interesting is that when you press hard, they trigger portamento legato transitions. When you play regularly, the legato is just the regular legato. And in terms of the performance, it sounds relatively, neutral. Like there's not that much vibrato. It's not too passionate. It does sound like just a nice recording. I probably wouldn't use it as a really exposed solo, just because there is a little bit of an interesting sound to it. I'm gonna load in the tree and see what the difference is, or how it contributes to the sound a little bit more. Let's see if it fills out nicely. Just let it load here. Okay, here we go. It's interesting, like the legato transitions come in with vibrato, but then afterwards it goes non-vib again. So if I just activate vib now, vibrato, cool. And expressive vibrato. Cool. Strong vibrato. Now this really sounds like the screeching, or sorry, the high singing in the Chinese operas. So this instrument was very popular in the Chinese opera because they almost had like a wailing voices in those types of musical genres. And so this really mimics the high wailing voices pretty well. Let's hear some ornaments. So this is both the spot and the tree mic currently activated. It's still pretty dry, as you can hear. Sounds like a telephone. Let's hear a couple swells. Cool. And let's hear harmonics. Cool. All right, that is the solo Gaohu. Now, I will say that that this solo instrument really sounds like a solo instrument. There are a couple instruments in Jade Orchestra, and this is prior to the update. I think at this moment, Stredzov is still looking for suggestions for the newest update for JEO. But at this moment, are some solo instruments that do sound like they are almost like doubled instruments, like it's on ensemble. So hopefully that gets fixed in the update. So far, this has a very soloistic sound. Legato is relatively smooth. Could be a little smoother, but not bad at all. Let's hear the ensemble. Okay, if that's no vib, then let's see what vib is. Let's hear no vib again. Okay, so that one has no vib actually. Now strong vib. Yeah, that's super strong. So yeah, very smooth legato actually, smoother than the solo Gauhu, which I thought was pretty interesting. Let's carry on. Let's go to the erhu. This is like the staple in most Chinese music, so let's load in both the spot and the tree for this case. Okay, so I am fully confident in using this erhu as a solo instrument. I think it has a beautiful tone as usual, and exposed, even with the spot mic, the legato is pretty smooth, and you can hear how it connects pretty well together. Again, when you press hard, you get the portamento. When you press lightly, you get the regular legato. Let's hear a bit of staccato. Okay, moving on to the ensemble. First, let's hear the tree bike, actually. So I'm just imagining in the context of like a full Chinese orchestra, the way they would be set up on the stage is kind of similar to like a Western orchestra in a way, where the ensemble is a little bit to the left, and you have that more concert hall sound. So it's going to be more using like a tree mic, for example. So let's have a listen. So lowest note here is a D. And very interesting. Cool. All right, let's hear the ornaments. And that's using the tree mic actually. So there's actually not that much room sound, right? It's relatively dry. Yeah, I just think that's really interesting. I mean, we can always add in our own reverb, but the fact that it's relatively dry, like there's not that much room sound in it, makes it quite flexible in that regard. Then we have the staccato. Some tremolos. right, let's go on to the Jeonghu. So this is basically a lower version. Oops, sorry. Basically a lower version of the erhu. So let's turn that off. Turn on the spot mic. And here's what it sounds like. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the vibrato, like the performances in general are very passionate, very well recorded, of course. And it feels like the legato catches up very smoothly. Like there's no huge bumps, and especially in the context of a mix, those instruments will come through nicely. I don't think there will be any problems blending this library with a fuller mix. Let's move on a little quicker here. Then we have the Jeonghu Ensemble. Turn off the mic. Wait for it to load here. Okay, ornaments. Yeah, sounds like a very full ensemble. So very consistent across all of these sections, I would say. I personally feel that Gaohu is probably the weakest out of all of them, just because like the tone doesn't really reach through as much, maybe. But the Erhu and the Jeonghu feel like they have a little more of a robust body to them. Might also have to do with just like the nature of the way the Gaohu is performed and the way it's built. You know, it's not as strong as the Erhu, but no, like in general, the consistency across the different instruments is great and very usable. Then we have the cello ensemble and the double basses. So let's have a listen to that. Awesome. And finally, the double bass. So I'm having a little bit of trouble going between the articulations. For some reason, sometimes the instruments are not activating as I want them to. But I'm still learning my way around the sign player, so let's look for the double bass here. So it sounds like one single double bass, which is really cool. We only need one, so. So yeah, they really went low with these instruments here because in the string section there really isn't that much of a replacement for the cello and the double bass in the Chinese orchestra. So bringing those instruments in is a really smart move. Whereas in Jade Ethnic Orchestra they use the Morankur, the Mongolian instruments for the lower sections. So it's if you have both, it's really nice to mix and match between both of those libraries. Cool. So overall, the bowed strings are very consistent. Legato sounds great, and I love that they have different different vibrato settings that you can CC between, like, switch between. So very, very useful for building your own phrases and making them convincing. So moving on to the woodwinds. So starting here with the bangdi, we have both the room and the spot and the tree mics loaded up to see what it sounds like with a bit of definition. So the equivalent to that in the Western orchestra would probably be something like the piccolo. Let's hear the sustained ornaments. That's from a half step above. There you get kind of like a turn thing. A lot of force in those staccatos. And finally, trills. All right, very cool. Legato sounds awesome. Very, very smooth, and the recording quality, of course, is fantastic. Moving on to the kudi. Let's go and load up that microphone position. Make sure I have the right range loaded up. Cool. All right, moving on to the sheng. Let's have a listen. Now it's interesting that this instrument is not played with vibrato, usually not. Just the way performers play it stylistically, usually it doesn't have very much vibrato in it. I love that. That's really cool. And I was just only playing one note each time there. All right, I'm really looking forward to the Siu, which is basically like my last name. So let's hear what this sounds like. Make sure we have this loaded up. So I don't really hear the vibrato there in the progressive vibrato. Let's try expressive vibrato. So that still sounds like non-vibrato to me. Wonder why that is. Maybe that's just a programming thing. Yep, so it sounds like there's no vibrato there. So I don't hear any vibrato for these vibrato settings. Maybe I'm missing something, but that's as far as I can hear. Let's hear a couple of these ornaments. Pretty similar to what we've heard before. Let's hear the Bawu. Bawu is over here. Load that up. So the vibrato there is beautiful. Really enjoy that one. Let's hear, let's see what the Trills Accelerata sounds like. All right, moving on to the Helusi. Here we go. Let's actually maybe put on the tree as well for this one. So that's an A drone over there. Very cool, very cool. Just going through hearing the sound of each of these instruments is kind of fun. Let's just hear the legato for this Helusi in F. Go to that one. Okay, let's do a couple more here. Then the Guan. This one sounds kind of like the Sheng to me, which we're gonna, or sorry, that sounds like the Swana to me, which we're gonna get to in a little bit. Then let's hear the Sun. This is the Sun in C. See if I can activate it here. Just a gorgeous sound there. The Sun is one of the quietest Chinese instruments, if not the quietest. And then the Sun in D. I wonder what the difference here is. Very much more passionate there, and no legato for this one. Oh, that's very cool. So this one has more effects stuff in it. I don't know when I would use these, but that's awesome. All right, last two, Swana. Okay, this is going to be loud. So I'm just going to, I'm hoping I don't blow my ears out listening to this, but let's see. Okay, for this one, I feel like on the most part, the legato is more audible. I think it works better when you play faster. Then the legato doesn't really have time to have that little phasing transition, if you know what I mean. Other than that, it sounds awesome. Very loud, of course. It's the loudest Chinese instrument there is. And finally, we have the Zhongyin Swana. So here's what this one sounds like. Let's hear some staccato. All right, so overall, I love the woodwinds. I think they sound beautiful, just like the other instruments so far. Legato for the first few instruments is especially impressive, and the tone of all of them is just beautiful. I think it was the CU that had a lack of vibrato. Maybe I. Oh, you know what? I think it's because maybe I was on the wrong instrument. Because now looking at the CU, they have these. Wait, let me see. No. Okay, it is these vibrato settings. Sorry. Let me try one more time. Let me see if the CU has these different vibrato settings loaded up. So let's load in the spot one more time and double check. Okay, there is the vibrato. Awesome. Expressive. Okay, so there is the vibrato. I must have done something wrong previously. But there we go. Woodwinds sound beautiful. Legato sounds gorgeous. And just remember, this is just with the spot microphones loaded up for the most part. Imagine loading at the surround and the AB and the tree as well. You can add in that depth, and it'll also additionally hide more of the legato transitions as well. All right, and last but not least, the Chinese percussion menu. As you can see, these are all of the different instruments. I'm going to go through them relatively quickly. I believe the Chinese percussion menu is a culmination of all of these instruments laid out on one patch. So if I just click the single hits for the Chinese percussion menu, they're all laid out here. So let's have a listen to some of these over here. Yeah, so I do believe these are all mapped out along there because I heard the Chinese symbols near the top, and there we have the Chinese symbols near the top here as well, or near the bottom, I should say. Let's hear some of the rolls. So. Awesome. All right, let's skip through here a little bit. See what this sounds like. Okay, so these are both single hits. Here you have the rim or the clack. Then here we have 2 hits on the E. The F is triple hits, and then quadruple hits on the G. Very cool. Here's the rolls. Let's hear the Chinese lion drum. So I'm going to load that in here. Nice. And the rolls. Nice. I think what would be cool though is after you release the roll, if they have one additional hit to end it off, kind of like how Cineperk, the timpani does that, you know? That could be really cool. The Jeonghu. Let's see what that sounds like. Sounds like these drums over here on the bottom are a bit lower. Ones at the top here have a little more definition. Maybe they're played more with a stick or something, you know. The shogu. Nice. Paigu. Nice. The Siu Tangu. I'm guessing this means a small paigu, basically. Bangu. Now to ban something in Chinese just means to hit something, like bang. So nice. There's like that first gong or cymbal type of hit. So I think it's like some type of gong. There's the Chinese cymbals. Here we go. Oof, that's loud. So velocity sensitive, of course. And finally, I'm not even going to pronounce those. So forgive me, I'm still making my way around the sign player and the interface and trying to get used to it. I've spent so many years in Contact, but that's the idea. So that is Phoenix Orchestra from Orchestral Tools. So my general first impressions are that, first of all, the sound is wonderful. And that's something we've come to know and expect from Orchestral Tools. It's just a really pristine and clean sound. Secondly, the articulations and the variety of instruments, I think, is very true to Chinese instrumentation. I think they covered most, if not almost all, of the Chinese instruments that we have. And the scripting in general is very well done. I mean, legato is always something that's a little bit tricky, especially with the bowed strings and the woodwinds. But in general, they did a fine job. And I especially love the ability to kind of switch between different vibrato styles for additional expression as you see fit. So yeah, that was a lot of fun going through the library and trying out the different sounds and seeing the difference between the spot mic and the tree mic. My general thought process or conclusion is that the spot mic and even the tree mic is still pretty dry. So if you want a little more of a wet sound, then go with something like the surround mics or maybe even the AB mics. Jade Ethnic Orchestra's mic positions are a little bit farther. They have much more of a wet sound to them. So I feel like combining both of these libraries will be a little bit of a mixing and matching puzzle, if you will. But aside from that, they like both libraries do a fantastic job of exploring the Asian, the Chinese side of the orchestra, and I just have to commend both OT and Stretsov for doing this. So I hope you enjoyed this video going over the instruments of Phoenix Orchestra. It means a lot that you stuck around and explored the sounds with me at the same time. Yeah, I mean, this is basically what I expected. I expected this collection of instruments to have a great sound, pretty easy playability. I mean, for me, I'm still getting used to the sign player, so once I get more in tune with it and the way it works and all of that, I'm still having a little trouble kind of organizing the track layout and everything on the side. So that's just on me, but in general, the library sounds fantastic, and I'm looking forward to using it in some productions. Again, if you're interested in learning a little more about traditional Chinese instruments, I've created some slides going over a bit of the history and the instrument functions and all of that. So it's absolutely free if you want to download that for yourself in the description box below. Feel free to check that out and learn some more about Chinese instruments. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of rich history behind the music. So thank you very much for watching, and let me know if this library is something that you're considering picking up, or if you have already, and if you enjoy playing around with it, just let me know. I'm very interested to hear. And yeah, thank you again for sticking around, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.